Hey guys, Mike from Fortinet Guru here. Back to basics video 2. This one's going to specifically cover some of the things that are available in the CLI. Most people that are new to FortiGates usually try to avoid the CLI because the GUI, the graphical user interface, it's simple, right? You see it, you point, you click. It's the experience that we're all used to. But if you're new to the devices, one of the best ways to actually get to understand them is by digging through their CLI and seeing the various things and how they're set. For instance, there are a lot of settings that just simply are not configurable through the GUI. They're only available in the CLI. So, half the time you won't even know that they're there unless you're in the CLI and you're doing Git commands to see what they are, right? So that's what this is going to focus on. I'm going to log in here. And all I did was use PuTTY and SSH'd into the device, and so here I am. For instance, if you want to see the configuration of the device, you do show full config, and you may have noticed, but I was able to tab complete that. Once you have enough of it typed up, you can hit the tab key and it'll complete it if it's enough for it to make an assumption or a predictive text on. Just like Cisco gear and pretty much any other vendor, you're able to do that. So like show full config. Okay, cool. Hit enter. This will print the actual configuration just like it would if I backed up the config through the GUI and opened this in a text file. Hit Q so I can get out. And let's say I wanted to do show full configuration grep admin. This will pull the config for any portion that has to do with admin. So just like basic Linux commands, you can search the config really quickly, which is, if you're proficient in it, this actually makes you faster because you're not having to click around pages and stuff. So show full config grep SSL, and this will pull everything that has to do with SSL. Short and sweet, you're able to do it. Obviously, the more information you're able to provide in regards to the grep, the better it gets. One of the main things that Fortinet likes to ask people whenever you call their support and you're experiencing issues is they'll ask you to do a Git System Status, because as you're looking at this, you can see it tells me what my device is. This is a FortiWi-Fi 61E running code 6.0.2. When my databases were last updated, the serial number of the device, what BIOS is running, versions of the databases. It has a log disk that's available. It's operating in that mode, and it only has a root VDOM because it doesn't have other VDOMs enabled. It currently doesn't have any HAs in standalone mode. Another thing is like Git System HA Status. If you have two FortiGates that are in a cluster, you can do this and it'll show you if the health status of your cluster is healthy. Are things are things doing what they should be in HA? Because if your cluster is in a degraded state, it'll tell you. And it'll even tell you certain things like whether or not you have session pickup and things of that nature enabled. Some other information like you wanted to see the firewall policy, so you just do a show firewall policy and hit enter. This particular FortiGate has no policy on it, but if I wanted to, I could config firewall policy and then edit 0. When you do edit 0, it'll just automatically create an entry for the next number that you have in line. So let's say you create 10 policies and you do your policy numbers would be 1 through 10. Well, instead of saying edit 11, because if you edit and then use a number that already exists, it's going to overwrite that policy. So edit 0 just uses the next available sequence. And then from there, you do a git, you can see all the settings that you can set on a policy. You do not see majority of this whenever you're in the GUI. You see the source information, destination, the addresses, services, and whatnot. But you don't see things like, do I need RTP NAT enabled? The SCP matching, various offloading capabilities. How do you want to NAT it? I mean, you can choose IP rules and things like that, or IP pools and things of that nature, but you can even change what the policy will allow into UIs. It's so much better, and you can filter VLANs, deny packets, match VIPs, all kinds of stuff, none of which is available through the GUI. So it's pretty cool. If you have a FortiGate that has a lot of different networks connected to it, and maybe a whole bunch of IPsec tunnels, and you're trying to figure out what path you would take to get somewhere, get router info routing table. And then basically, if you want to do details, you could type details and then the IP. So it gets to the 10.100.100 network, which is my home network, directly via WAN 1, because that happens to be the interface that it's connected on, because WAN 1 is 100.20, right? So get router info routing table all. This will tell me all the routes that are currently available. I have 10.30.30.0 hanging behind this FortiGate. It's off the LAN switch. My default route is going to 10.100.100.1 through WAN 1. And if you have multiple types of routes, it'll show you right here. It'll say, oh, this is an OSPF route, because you're learning it through the dynamic routing protocol of OSPF or BGP or whatever. So very, very powerful. You can get routing details from the GUI, but you can grep it. So if you had 1,000 different things, you could just pull it in relatively easily. So the question mark is uber powerful. This is what you're going to use to find where you're at and what's available to you. So as you can see, if you're just at the root of the device and you do a question mark, you're able to do config, get, show, diagnose, execute, alias, and exit. Diagnose is extremely powerful. That's what you use whenever you're doing debugging. You are an awesome Fortinet engineer if you know how to properly use the diagnose section and you know what the commands mean, because you can watch the packet as it enters the interface, as it's processed, where it's going, and as it leaves. It tells you what policy it's hitting, why. And usually that's where you're going to find your issues. So you got a lot of different options. Obviously, if you do config and then question mark, or show and then question mark, it'll show you the commands that are available there. So config VoIP, and then, oh look, I can do question mark again. Well, I can config a profile there. So the predictive text, the question mark, which basically gets you through things. It just lets you slowly dig down and find what you're looking for. And phase 1 interface, question enter, get, so CLI, if you don't use it, if you have a FortiGate laying around that's not production, log in and play. If your FortiGate is production, log in with a read-only account and play. At least you can get familiar with the commands and where they go. It'll help you out a lot. But yeah, that's basic intro in the CLI. I'm sure you guys may have questions about specific things in the CLI, so please don't hesitate to ask in the comments, and I'll follow up some response videos that answer specifically your questions. Otherwise, you guys have a wonderful night.